Clearly, you don't belong in this first-class cabin, ma'am. Chief Flight Attendant Jennifer Morrison planted herself in the aisle, arms crossed in defense, while Vanessa Williams, the formidable CEO of a multi-hundred-million-dollar aviation consulting firm, calmly held her ticket aloft. In an instant, the cramped cabin became an arena where 12 years of Morrison's experience clashed violently with a form of corporate power she'd never imagined. The recycled air grew stifling as curious, tense whispers rippled through every row, dozens of unblinking eyes fixed on the standoff. Morrison's icy voice rang out across the cabin, each contemptuous syllable magnifying the humiliation. What happened next would expose the dangerous intersection of authority, prejudice, and the unassailable truth of justice. Vanessa Williams, the black CEO of Williams Aviation Consulting, had boarded in deceptively simple attire, a light gray hoodie and well-worn jeans. Her face was composed, radiating the calm confidence of someone accustomed to making million-dollar decisions. Yet at that moment, her understated appearance thrust her into the epicenter of an unimaginable confrontation. Just as Vanessa reached Seat 2A, the first-class seat she'd reserved, a cold voice cut through the hush. "Ma'am, you clearly do not belong in this cabin." Jennifer Morrison, the chief flight attendant, stood blocking the way, arms folded and eyes glinting with suspicion and disdain. She made no effort to hide the contempt etched on her face, as though Vanessa were nothing more than an intruder lost among the elite. Her words, sharp and deliberate, snapped every passenger's attention toward Vanessa. A wave of murmurs swept through the rows, weaving a tension so thick it could almost be felt. Curious and anxious gazes flickered between the two women, like opponents on the brink of an unseen duel. Vanessa paused, locking eyes with Jennifer in a still silence that crackled with power. Unfazed by the provocation, her inner question was clear. Was this a harmless mistake, or the opening move in a far deeper conflict? In that small yet luxurious cabin, strangers became unwitting witnesses to a tense showdown, one that would likely alter the fortunes of everyone involved, from the powerhouse CEO to the seasoned chief flight attendant. Then, as Vanessa gently drew out her first-class ticket and ID, it became clear that this was only the beginning. Vanessa calmly pulls out her first-class ticket and ID, her hands steady, not shaking at all. She slowly holds them out to Jennifer, her expression as composed as ever. "This is my ticket, Seat 2A, first class," Vanessa says in a soft but clear voice, loud enough for the surrounding passengers to hear, yet measured so as not to inflame the situation further. But in response to her polite cooperation, Jennifer barely glances at the ticket before letting out a quiet, mocking laugh, as if it were a clumsy joke rather than irrefutable proof of Vanessa's rightful place. "This ticket tells me nothing," Jennifer says coldly, her eyes full of suspicion. "I need to see your actual ID." Once again, Vanessa remains composed as she retrieves her driver's license, a perfectly valid government ID, from her wallet. Jennifer takes it with just her fingertips, as if afraid to touch something unclean. She holds it up in front of her, brow furrowed, tilting her head as she inspects it with exaggerated scrutiny, turning a routine check into a public spectacle designed to humiliate Vanessa before the onlooking passengers. "Well, how very interesting," Jennifer sneers. "But this ID doesn't match our premium passenger manifest. Looks like you're in the wrong section." Each word is deliberately enunciated, laced with malice, meant to seed doubt in everyone's mind that Vanessa could possibly be a first-class traveler. The cabin air grows stifling as curious and indignant stares converge on them. While Vanessa maintains her calm dignity in the face of this public slight, a young Asian passenger in the next row, Sarah Chen, decides to take action. Unable to remain silent as injustice unfolds before her eyes, Sarah pulls out her phone, opens Instagram, switches to live mode, and quietly begins streaming the entire incident. The moment Sarah's live stream goes live, viewers skyrocket from a few dozen to hundreds within minutes. Angry, outraged comments attacking Jennifer's behavior flood Sarah's screen, strengthening Sarah's resolve to keep the camera steady and record every detail. Oblivious to the fact that her actions are now being witnessed worldwide, Jennifer continues to wield her authority abusively. With a dismissive flick of her wrist and eyes still brimming with contempt, she tosses the ID back to Vanessa. "I think you should move to economy. You're causing a disturbance and wasting everyone's time." Vanessa remains silent, a steely glint in her eyes but her composure unbroken. She knows that arguing now won't help. What matters is letting Jennifer's true bias reveal itself fully, and that truth is being broadcast live to hundreds of observers, second by second. Vanessa remained silent, but a steely determination began to sparkle in her eyes. She knew that in this moment, composure was her greatest strength. Slowly, she raised her phone and gently brought up the electronic proof, her valid first-class reservation with every transaction detail clearly and accurately displayed. "Miss Morrison," Vanessa said politely, yet firmly, "this is my official e-confirmation. As you can see, seat 2A is unquestionably mine." Jennifer glanced at the screen for a moment, then turned away with obvious irritation, as if the truth before her eyes didn't even register. Her arrogance and prejudice had erected an invisible wall that blocked out any reasonable argument or concrete evidence Vanessa could offer. "I don't care what your screen shows," Jennifer snapped, her tone sharp and impatient now, laced with contempt. "Anyone can fake something like that. I've told you, you need to move to economy right now before I call security." Tension in the cabin rose to a fever pitch as every pair of eyes locked onto the two women standing in the aisle. No one dared speak up until an older gentleman in the next row finally intervened in a soothing, measured voice. "Excuse me, flight attendant," he said gently. "I believe she's provided more than enough proof. Perhaps it's just a misunderstanding. Could you please double-check?" Jennifer whipped back to face him, her glare icy and unyielding. "Sir, I appreciate your concern, but this isn't your business," she replied coolly, enunciating each word as if to assert absolute authority. "This cabin is reserved for our regular premium passengers, those who use our first-class service frequently. I know exactly who belongs here and who doesn't." Her loaded remark cast the cabin into an even more suffocating silence. Everyone understood that her words were veiled prejudice, judgments about appearance, race, and social standing, yet no one dared voice it aloud. Vanessa watched Jennifer quietly. She flicked a hand toward her coat pocket as if to retrieve something, and every head in the cabin leaned in to see what she might reveal. Then, just as quietly, she paused and withdrew her hand, deciding that now was not the time to lay all her cards on the table. Throughout this tense standoff, Sarah Chen's phone continued recording, her Instagram livestream viewers growing by the second. Furious, heartbroken comments scrolled by. "This is unbelievable. That flight attendant is out of line. Someone call airline management. This can't stand." But Jennifer, seemingly oblivious to the worldwide audience now witnessing her behavior, stood her ground. Vanessa, resolute and composed, prepared for whatever came next, fully aware that this confrontation was only just beginning, and that Jennifer's provocations would have consequences. While the hush still clung to the cabin, Jennifer's brow furrowed in frustration, her eyes drilling into Vanessa as if determined never to back down. Refusing to admit even the slightest mistake, She snapped the headset mic on her uniform and called for reinforcements with resolute authority. "David, we've got an issue at Seat 2A. I need you here right away." Less than a minute later, David Parker, the senior flight manager, strode up from the back of the cabin, his face etched with irritation at this unexpected disturbance. Tall, impeccably dressed in his vest, his sharp gaze conveyed both command and impatience at being tasked with such a drama. "What's going on, Jennifer?" David barked, sweeping a suspicious look over Vanessa that matched Jennifer's own doubt. "This passenger insists she has a first-class ticket," Jennifer shot back, her tone laced with malice. "But I've checked the manifest. She's not on our premium list." Without even glancing at the electronic confirmation Vanessa held, David produced a small tablet and pulled up the first-class roster. He frowned, scrolling through, then froze when the name appeared in plain sight. "Vanessa Williams, Seat 2A, he read slowly, confusion and surprise creeping into his voice. He looked up at Vanessa, doubt mingling with astonishment. Vanessa Williams? The CEO of Williams Aviation Consulting? The air in the cabin grew thick. Passengers began whispering more audibly as they caught wind of her title, CEO. Every eye turned toward Jennifer, waiting for her next move. But instead of conceding, Jennifer let out a mocking laugh and glared Vanessa up and down with contempt. "You've got to be kidding, David, a high-powered CEO dressed in jeans and a hoodie?" Her sneer dripped with prejudice. Judgments about appearance, race, and social status, all unfair and irrational assumptions laid bare for everyone to see. David hesitated, visibly shaken by Jennifer's confident defiance. He glanced at Vanessa again, then back at Jennifer, as though seeking further justification rather than trusting the proof on his screen. Vanessa stood perfectly still, her posture unwavering, her eyes reflecting an unbreakable resolve. She offered no rebuttal and spoke no more. For her, the moment was no longer about a first-class ticket, but about exposing the raw bias playing out under hundreds of watchful gazes. Next to her, Sarah Chen's phone never stopped rolling. Her live-stream viewership had already surged past 1,000, the comments flooding in with outrage. "I can't believe they're treating a black CEO this way. Both managers are blatantly discriminatory. Shameful. This airline will pay for this." Jennifer and David remained blind to the gravity of their actions, clinging to their limited authority without realizing the far greater power Vanessa carried in her pocket. A power capable of upending their world in an instant. And Vanessa, with unwavering calm, was patiently waiting for just the right moment to reveal it. Tension still hung in the cabin when Vanessa, her patience seemingly boundless, quietly spoke up to break the oppressive silence. "Perhaps it's time I clarify a few things." Her voice was calm yet razor-sharp, drawing every gaze, including David's and Jennifer's, fixed on her. She slipped a hand into her coat pocket again and this time pulled out a slim leather wallet. From it, she produced a crisp company ID card, its logo prominent, and her name printed clearly above, Vanessa Williams, Chief Executive Officer, Williams Aviation Consulting. Vanessa looked directly at David and spoke slowly, each word cutting through the thick prejudice both he and Jennifer had erected. "I am Vanessa Williams, CEO of Williams Aviation Consulting, the very company that just signed an $847 million per year contract to maintain all domestic aircraft for American Airlines. I'm sure Mr. Parker can confirm that with his corporate office." Her declaration set off a ripple of stunned whispers among the passengers. David Parker's face turned ashen, his fingers trembling visibly on the tablet. He glanced at the screen, then back at Vanessa, his earlier confidence replaced by bewilderment and near panic. But Jennifer, prideful and stubborn in her bias, refused to admit defeat. Her cheeks flushed with a mix of anger and humiliation, yet she pressed on instead of apologizing. "And you think flashing an ID like this will convince me? I've worked for this airline for over 10 years, and I know when someone is trying to scam their way into first class," she declared loudly, deliberately raising her voice to reassert the slipping authority. David tried to intervene gently, concern in his tone. "Jennifer, maybe we should double-check." "No more checking," Jennifer snapped, her eyes ablaze with fury. "I've had enough of this nonsense. David, call security right now and have this woman removed from the aircraft. We can't let an imposter waste our premium passengers' time." The surrounding passengers gawked in shock at Jennifer's overreaction. Meanwhile, Sarah Chen's phone continued streaming live, her viewer count soaring past the thousands as outraged comments poured in. "This is outrageous. They're destroying their airline's reputation on live stream. Jennifer will regret not believing the truth. A powerful black CEO is being discriminated against. Shameful." Despite the mounting backlash, Jennifer stood her ground, arms crossed, her expression defiant and unyielding. She didn't realize that her arrogance and obstinacy were driving her career to the brink of disaster. In the midst of this chaos, Vanessa remained statuesque, exuding quiet authority. She knew that her true power didn't lie in vain arguments, but in the unassailable facts of her position. Power that could turn the tables in an instant when the time was right. Tension still gripped the cabin as Vanessa stood her ground, her eyes never leaving Jennifer, who was still vocally demanding security be called. Waiting for Jennifer's irrational fury to subside just enough, Vanessa finally spoke, her voice calm but razor-sharp, commanding absolute attention. "Perhaps Miss Morrison isn't fully aware of the truth behind today's flight," Vanessa began slowly, each word like a cold drop of water dousing the raging flames of prejudice. "I'm not only the CEO of Williams Aviation Consulting, a key partner of American Airlines. The real reason I'm on this flight today is to conduct a covert audit requested directly by American Airlines Board of Directors. And unfortunately, that audit concerns incidents of racial discrimination by staff against passengers." The moment Vanessa's words fell, the cabin fell into stunned silence. Passengers exchanged wide-eyed glances, their whispers rippling through the rows like waves from a pebble dropped onto a still lake. Even David Parker, the confident senior manager, went pale, his eyes darting in confusion between Vanessa and Jennifer. Jennifer, who just moments ago had been cocky and resolute, now looked ashen. Her face shifted from anger to outright horror in an instant. Her lips trembled, and her gaze lost its anchor, flooded by panic. Her legs threatened to buckle under the weight of this unexpected revelation. "An audit?" Jennifer stammered, unable to believe what she'd just heard. Her prior confidence had completely crumbled, revealing a woman utterly terrified as she faced the real-world consequences of her discriminatory actions. Vanessa continued, her tone steady, but every syllable cutting deep into Jennifer's shattered pride. "Exactly. This flight was a live scenario set up by me and the airline's board to test the staff's fairness and professionalism. And sadly, Ms. Morrison, instead of upholding those standards, you chose to act on your personal prejudices." By now, Jennifer had utterly lost control. She stood frozen, breathing heavily, her eyes darting for help, but all she saw were cold, accusing stares from the passengers. David shifted uncomfortably, avoiding Jennifer's gaze, unable to utter even a single defense. Meanwhile, Sarah Chen still held her phone, her livestream audience surging to unprecedented numbers. The comments flooded in like a storm. "Unbelievable! They actually pulled off a secret audit like this? Jennifer will be held fully accountable for this shameful behavior. This CEO is brilliant. What an impeccable way to handle it." Vanessa remained statuesque in that charged silence, looking Jennifer in the eye once more without uttering another word. She knew that the truth she'd just revealed was the gravest verdict Jennifer could ever face, and now Jennifer had to confront the fallout of her own misguided choices. The moment Vanessa's revelation about the covert audit finished, the cabin's tense atmosphere erupted into a silent but fierce chaos. Jennifer stood frozen like a statue, her face drained of color and her lips trembling, unable to utter another protest. Her earlier arrogance and defiance had collapsed into sheer panic and horror as she realized the powerful CEO of their strategic partner had just witnessed and exposed her behavior before hundreds of onlookers. A few rows back, Sarah Chen gripped her phone, still live streaming every second. Her screen blinked with hundreds, then thousands, of viewers tuning in each passing moment. Sarah glanced up and quietly addressed nearby passengers. "We're witnessing an extremely serious case of racial discrimination unfolding on this flight. Flight discrimination is going viral. Share this so everyone knows the truth about this airline." Within minutes, flight discrimination exploded across social media. Sarah's livestream audience surged into the thousands, then tens of thousands, as furious, indignant comments flooded in like a flash flood. "This airline needs to be held accountable. Jennifer's true nature has been exposed. She won't get away with this. That CEO handled it brilliantly. Real strength." At the same time, a young man a few rows ahead began live streaming on TikTok, his voice urgent and electrified. "Everyone, I'm watching a powerful black CEO being openly discriminated against on this plane. Chief Flight Attendant Jennifer has been shockingly rude and biased. I bet she's about to lose her job over this. This is blatant racism in front of thousands of live viewers. Share this video far and wide." His words were like a bomb, igniting an even larger wave of outrage sweeping every platform. The TikTok video went viral in seconds, racking up views from thousands to tens of thousands almost instantly. Meanwhile, Jennifer stood motionless, her eyes vacant as she stared at the cabin floor, her body trembling, breath heavy with fear. David Parker stood beside her, equally helpless, watching the situation spiral completely out of his control. Both knew this crisis had leaped beyond the airplane's walls, and that the fallout would be far graver than they ever imagined. Through it all, Vanessa remained perfectly composed. She understood that the power of truth and justice was radiating well beyond this cramped cabin, and Jennifer, who just minutes ago had flaunted her prejudice, was now about to face an unstoppable wave of backlash, a viral storm strong enough to wash away the decade she'd spent building her career. Just as the chaos on the flight was spinning wildly out of control, a sharply dressed middle-aged man in a black suit hurried in through the cabin door, his expression grave. It was Thomas Hart, a senior airport manager whom American Airlines had urgently dispatched to handle the rapidly spreading social media crisis. His eyes swept the cabin and finally came to rest on Vanessa and Jennifer, the epicenter of the turmoil. Hart moved swiftly toward Vanessa, tension evident on his face even as he maintained a professional demeanor. "Miss Williams, I'm Thomas Hart, the airport manager. I've just received an urgent directive from American Airlines CEO Patricia Hayes about the incident unfolding here. She's asked me to resolve this immediately." Before Hart could finish, his phone rang, on speaker, the caller ID displaying Patricia Hayes, CEO, American Airlines. Startled, he answered and flipped the call onto speaker so the entire cabin could hear. "Thomas, have you located Miss Vanessa Williams?" Patricia Hayes's authoritative yet concerned voice came through clearly. "Yes, ma'am. I'm standing right beside her," Hart replied quickly, his eyes flicking to Vanessa with visible concern. "Good," Patricia continued, her tone firm but not without compassion. "Thomas, please hand the phone to Miss Williams. I need to speak with her directly, in front of all passengers and everyone watching online." Hart turned and offered the phone to Vanessa with respectful courtesy. Vanessa accepted it, her calm resolve unchanged. "Hello, Miss Williams," Patricia Hayes began, her words clear and steady. "I'm Patricia Hayes, CEO of American Airlines. First and foremost, I want to sincerely apologize for the terrible experience you've endured. I've verified the facts with my office, and I can confirm that you are indeed Vanessa Williams, CEO of Williams Aviation Consulting, one of our most important strategic partners." The cabin once again fell into absolute silence as every passenger leaned in to hear the apology coming from the airline's top executive. Jennifer, now drained of strength, slumped against the bulkhead, her face a mix of shock and shame as her world crumbled around her. David Parker, standing nearby, averted his eyes, unable to speak in defense of his colleague. Patricia pressed on with unwavering conviction. "I am deeply sorry to learn that our own staff behaved unprofessionally and engaged in serious racial discrimination. I assure you, and all passengers on this flight, as well as the thousands watching online, that we will take this matter extremely seriously. There will be zero tolerance for any act of racial bias within our company." Patricia Hayes's public, heartfelt apology resonated like a seismic tremor through the cabin. On Sarah Chen's phone screen, the live stream view count had surged into the tens of thousands, everyone witnessing this historic moment directly from the CEO of one of the world's most renowned airlines. Jennifer, crushed under the weight of the truth and the consequences bearing down on her, remained silent, her once confident, arrogant facade completely shattered. David Parker, standing beside her, could only bow his head in silent remorse, unable to meet the accusatory gazes of the passengers. Vanessa looked around the cabin, her eyes reflecting that she had just secured a crucial victory for justice and truth. Yet she knew this was only the beginning. Those like Jennifer, who embody discrimination and prejudice, would face far harsher repercussions unless they truly change their attitudes and actions. The moment CEO Patricia Hayes's public call ended, the cabin remained wrapped in a heavy, emotional silence. Passengers fixed their gaze on Jennifer, who leaned against the bulkhead, breathing hard, her eyes filled with confusion and defiance. Instead of recognizing and admitting her grievous mistake, Jennifer suddenly straightened up, striving to reclaim her shattered pride, and defiantly spoke out. "I did nothing wrong," Jennifer announced, her voice loud and clear despite a noticeable tremor. "I was simply doing my job. We have to protect our premium passengers from people who clearly don't belong in first class. It's our policy." Her words triggered another wave of angry murmurs throughout the cabin. Furious and disappointed looks turned toward Jennifer. On the live stream, outraged comments popped up instantly. "I can't believe she's still being so stubborn. Jennifer still doesn't realize how serious her mistake is. Unbelievable. This airline needs to take action against her immediately." Vanessa remained ice calm. Without a hint of haste, she reached into her pocket, retrieved her phone, and queued up a clear recording of the entire prior conversation, irrefutable evidence from the moment Jennifer began insulting and discriminating against her, right up to now. "Miss Morrison," Vanessa said coolly, her eyes locked on Jennifer, I think you need to listen to exactly what you said and did before you continue insisting you're in the right." The recording played back every word in the cabin, fueling the passengers' outrage as they heard Jennifer's rude, contemptuous refusal to fairly verify Vanessa's credentials. Each bigoted, discriminatory remark was laid bare with crystal clarity. Jennifer stood motionless, her body shaking violently as she heard her own voice. Her eyes went wide with panic, but even faced with such undeniable proof, she refused to surrender. Her blind instinct to defend her tarnished reputation flared again as she stammered, This doesn't reflect the full context. I was only following the airline's safety protocols. I'm trained to know who our genuine first-class customers are." "Miss Morrison," Vanessa interrupted, her tone as sharp as a knife. "There is not a single company policy that permits you to discriminate against passengers based on appearance or race. Your actions represent a grave violation of professional ethics and fly in the face of the core values this airline claims to uphold." Vanessa then turned her gaze to Thomas Hart, the senior airport manager still standing nearby with a solemn expression, and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I trust that American Airlines Board will soon make a clear decision regarding Ms. Morrison's conduct, and I assure you that, with this irrefutable evidence, her blatant racial discrimination will be addressed appropriately." Jennifer froze, utterly silenced. The confidence and arrogance she'd started with were now replaced by emptiness and fear. Vanessa's conclusive evidence struck like a final, crushing blow, extinguishing any hope Jennifer had of reversing her fate. Vanessa, her eyes steadfast, understood that Jennifer had chosen her own path, a path leading straight to the painful consequences of the truth she'd desperately tried to deny. Now, Jennifer must face herself and realize that denying reality cannot shield her from the severe repercussions fast approaching. In the moment, Jennifer stood frozen, her eyes hollow and defeated in the face of the clear evidence laid bare. Vanessa slowly turned back to the phone, where CEO Patricia Hayes was listening tensely. Vanessa's voice rang out soft yet powerful, making it unmistakably clear that today's events couldn't be swept aside or glossed over. "Ms. Hayes, I appreciate the sincerity of your public apology," Vanessa began politely but firmly. "However, as you've just heard, the issue before us isn't merely the mistake of one individual. It is the unmistakable symptom of a deeper, systemic problem within American Airlines culture and training. As a key strategic partner, I must insist your airline commit to a comprehensive reform immediately, or our hundreds of millions of dollars maintenance contract may not be renewed." The cabin air grew thick with tension at Vanessa's words. She understood that her demands now affected not only Jennifer as an individual, but the very future of American Airlines, one of the nation's largest carriers. From the other end of the line, Patricia Hayes responded cautiously but with clear resolve. "Miss Williams, I fully recognize the gravity of this situation, and I pledge to launch an immediate, far-reaching overhaul of our anti-discrimination training program. I will direct our HR team to develop a specific, rigorous, and effective plan to ensure nothing like this ever happens again." Vanessa gave a slight nod, her gaze softening ever so briefly, signaling her approval of the CEO's commitment. Then her eyes sharpened once more as she looked back at Jennifer, still standing like a statue, utterly broken by the realization that not just her career, but the airline's reputation was now at stake because of her misconduct. Thomas Hart stepped forward, his voice authoritative and clear. "Jennifer Morrison, based on the incontrovertible evidence presented, you are hereby suspended from duty effective immediately. During your suspension, you will be required to complete a 40-hour intensive racial bias training program under close supervision by senior HR. You may only return to work upon successful completion of the course and passing all assessments. Jennifer lifted her eyes to Thomas Hart, her expression a mixture of pain and shock, but she could not find a word to respond. Her legs trembled, and she nearly collapsed under the weight of the moment. She understood that this decision meant confronting the ingrained prejudices she had long denied. Meanwhile, Sarah Chen's livestream continued unabated, her viewer count soaring to record levels. Comments exploded again, this time with widespread approval and relief. A fair and well-deserved decision. Jennifer needs this lesson, and so does the airline. I hope American Airlines truly changes to regain customer trust. Vanessa surveyed the cabin, sensing a profound shift in the attitudes of both the passengers on board and those watching online. With her decisive action, she had not only secured justice for herself, but also opened the door to meaningful reform for the entire aviation industry. And Jennifer, now facing the painful consequences of her bias, stood as the most vivid proof that no one is above justice and the truth. Vanessa knew the road to real change was only beginning, but she was ready to lead the way, confident that significant reforms require firm, decisive choices, starting today in front of millions of witnesses. The moment CEO Patricia Hayes's public call ended, the cabin remained in an emotionally charged silence. Passengers fixed their eyes on Jennifer, who leaned against the bulkhead, breathing heavily, her expression a mix of confusion and defiance. Instead of acknowledging and correcting her grave mistake, Jennifer suddenly straightened up, struggling to reclaim her shattered pride, and stubbornly retorted, "I did nothing wrong," Jennifer declared, her voice loud and clear despite the tremor. "I was just doing my job. We have to protect our premium passengers from people who obviously don't belong in first class. It's policy." Her words sparked another wave of angry murmurs throughout the cabin, a flood of furious, disappointed glances aimed at Jennifer. On the live stream, outraged comments appeared instantly. "I can't believe she's still being so stubborn. Jennifer still doesn't realize how serious her mistake is. So disappointing. This airline needs to deal with her immediately." Vanessa remained ice calm. Without rushing, she gently but firmly pulled out her phone and queued up a clear recording of the entire prior conversation. Irrefutable proof from the moment Jennifer began insulting and discriminating against her, right up to now. "Ms. Morrison," Vanessa said coldly, her eyes locked on Jennifer, "I think you need to hear exactly what you said and did before insisting you're in the right." The recording's every word rang through the cabin, fueling the passengers' outrage as they heard Jennifer's rude, contemptuous refusal to fairly verify Vanessa's credentials. Each prejudiced remark was laid bare with crystal clarity. Jennifer stood frozen, her body shaking as she heard her own voice. Her eyes widened in panic, yet even confronted with such undeniable proof, she refused to relent. Instinctively defending her honor, she stammered, This doesn't reflect the whole context. I was just following the airline safety protocols. I'm trained to recognize our genuine first-class passengers." "Ms. Morrison," Vanessa interrupted, her tone razor-sharp, "there is no company policy that allows you to discriminate against customers based on appearance or race. Your actions represent a serious breach of professional ethics and directly contradict the core values this airline claims to uphold." Vanessa then turned to Thomas Hart, the airport's senior manager standing beside her with a solemn expression, and spoke clearly so everyone could hear. "I trust the American Airlines Board will soon issue a definitive decision regarding Ms. Morrison's conduct, and I assure you that, with this indisputable evidence, Her blatant racial discrimination will be addressed appropriately. Jennifer froze, utterly silenced. The confidence and arrogance she'd once displayed had evaporated, replaced by emptiness and fear. Vanessa's conclusive evidence struck like a final, crushing blow, dashing any hope Jennifer had of reversing her fate. Vanessa, her gaze unwavering, understood that Jennifer had chosen her own path, a path leading straight to the painful consequences of a truth she had desperately tried to deny. Now, Jennifer must face herself and realize that denying reality won't spare her from the severe repercussions fast approaching. The profound and genuine transformation of Jennifer didn't stop at her personal journey or within American Airlines. It became a living example celebrated across the U.S. aviation industry. Her story of growth, from someone who once made a grave mistake driven by unconscious bias to a trailblazer in the fight against discrimination, sparked a powerful wave of reform spreading faster than ever before. Recognizing the clear success of the covert audit model Vanessa introduced, the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, quickly stepped in, convening emergency meetings with senior leaders from major carriers like United, Delta, and Southwest. Vanessa was invited to share the audit process in detail and the invaluable lessons learned. The result was a rigorous, comprehensive anti-discrimination audit framework that was standardized and rolled out industry-wide. Other airlines, initially wary of such radical transparency, soon realized that confronting unconscious bias head-on was the most effective way to protect their reputation, their customers, and their profits. From the plush executive offices in Chicago, Atlanta, and Dallas, to every plane crisscrossing the American skies, staff underwent extensive, structured training to recognize, prevent, and address racial discrimination decisively. Jennifer, once teetering on the brink of losing her career, was unexpectedly promoted to Special Advisor for Anti-Bias Training at American Airlines. Leadership understood that no one could speak more authentically or persuasively than someone who had erred and then overcome those errors. When Jennifer took the podium, she no longer carried the arrogance of her former self. Instead, she spoke with humility, sincerity, and genuine passion. "I stand before you today not to hide my mistakes, but to tell you that we can all slip into the same errors if we don't seriously confront our unconscious biases," Jennifer would often begin, her voice trembling slightly but determined. She became a powerful testament to the real potential for change when people are given the truth and the chance to make things right. Jennifer's talks and workshops quickly multiplied, not only at American Airlines but across other carriers as well. She became a sought-after speaker at national conferences, sharing her experience with thousands of aviation and even non-aviation professionals eager to learn from her candid moving journey. Social media, once ablaze with video clips of Jennifer's mistake, now teemed with inspiring footage of her transformation. The hashtag #flight discrimination, once a symbol of crisis, evolved into a banner for positive industry-wide change. Civil rights organizations, prominent influencers, and everyday travelers began sharing Jennifer's story, renewed in their hope for genuine progress. Vanessa Williams, whose courageous decision set these changes in motion, watched Jennifer's remarkable evolution with pride. For Vanessa, Jennifer's journey underscored the power of facing the truth and providing the right education rather than mere punishment. Jennifer, who had once faltered, now stood as living proof that anyone can change when they summon the courage to face and correct their painful truths. What about you? Have you ever witnessed or experienced discrimination in your life or work? Share your story and thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story meaningful and worth sharing, please like, share this video, and subscribe for more compelling, human-centered stories with powerful messages. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.